What's going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today we're going to talk to you about ChargePoint. They do have their earnings coming up Wednesday after hours. So I want to go over some of the current estimates by analysts, what the current data points are saying, and where I see things going. Before we get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off, over this last little bit, ChargePoint has been extremely volatile. So once again, going into their upcoming earnings, anticipate the same kind of nature. Even looking at the volatility on the options, people are anticipating big swings in either direction. But one positive thing that I just wanted to share with you before I get into kind of some of the estimates is this. So the fear and greed index is under the greed category. So people's appetite for risk is kind of increasing. That could really stand to benefit ChargePoint. And I'm going to break that down on why and everything else. But starting off, as you can kind of see, so it does have it on September the 4th after hours, negative 10 cents for the earnings per share is the estimate, 113.48 million for the revenue. Over the last 90 days, there has been 5 positive and 0 negative revisions. So analysts are becoming a little bit more optimistic on ChargePoint, and that's piggybacking off of their stellar June earnings. As you can kind of see, it was a good triple beat, gave very good future guidance. So I think this earnings, talking on profitability, what they have coming down the pipeline, if they still have that Q4 product, and many things as well. But I think generally the market is going to be somewhat forgiving based on this. Like I said, like 2 weeks ago, yes, if a company missed minorly on earnings per share or another key metric, then yeah, the market would have really just pounded that stock down. But with people's appetite for risk kind of on the table, there's some wiggle room, if that kind of makes sense. But going over some estimates right now for the earnings per share, that negative 10 cents is I guess more of a consensus by 9 analysts, and that does represent 60.18% year-over-year growth. Even aside from that, you have all anticipating massive growth all the way up until Q4 2026. On which this is where you do see analysts a little bit more optimistic and kind of transitioning into profitability. So that's exactly what people want, right? Companies to turn profitable. That's where reliance on dilution, cash burn goes out the window, and you can kind of look towards bigger and better things. And plus, once that does happen, then you'll have a little bit more institutions paying attention to it. But aside from that though, revenue. So revenue, that 113.48 million, that is a consensus of 16 analysts. Unfortunately, it does represent negative 24.59% for year-over-year growth. Aside from that though, it gets back into double-digit growth all the time, pretty much all the way up until January 2027, or Q4, I guess. And the low 109, the high 116. So analysts are very, very optimistic. And I think just the timing of ChargePoint's earnings is very good, in my opinion. So I think just ChargePoint is going to most likely have another beat. There's nothing really occurring during the last earnings to really say otherwise. So I think ChargePoint is really poised to move higher, and options kind of signal the same thing. And so I'm going to start off by going over some data points, starting off with shorts. So shorts have been really making up the majority of the volume and has been really screwing ChargePoint around for roughly 2 years. So 27.05% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 106.02 million shares overall are being shorted. Utilization is 86.45, and then short score, so the higher the number, the higher the likelihood of a squeeze happening, is 83.92. And so even looking, for instance, on Friday, which did go up 1.08%, there was 7.1 million shares being traded, 10.5 is the average. Regrettably, you didn't see that much institutions paying attention to it, as you can kind of see. So these are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market above $100,000. So despite analysts' optimistic stance on ChargePoint for their upcoming earnings, and even in the future, you're seeing institutions buy on kind of in small doses, not necessarily large amounts. So that's not necessarily the best, but you do see it occurring on the dark pool. So dark pool is often enough linked to shorting as well as just larger entities. So shorts have been kind of making up the majority of the volume, daily volume, for the last several months. So if ChargePoint's earnings is very good, this is where you could see more value investors getting in. So large entities and institutions, possibly prompting a squeeze. Maybe that might be premature to talk on, but still 27.05% is very, very high. And even just generally over this last year as a whole, shorts have been lingering, so trading between that 20 and like 30% range for the short interest. So it's kind of crazy if you ask me, but I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. And I did do a top 5 most heavily shorted EV stocks, and then I did a bonus like top 3 charging companies. It's crazy the fact that like all the charging companies are so heavily shorted. And ChargePoint, regrettably, is the only one of the top 3 that wasn't really doing all that well. So in comparison to a lot of its peers, I think ChargePoint is somewhat overdue for a kind of bump up in the stock price. And options kind of signal the exact same thing. So let's get into that. So options, just based on Friday, 116,000 in calls, 37,000 in puts. 47% of all the options being done just on Friday was optimistic and bullish. Of those call options, there is a anticipation for it to be above $2.50 for the week of September the 6th. So clearly encumbering their earnings, right? And even this week alone, talking on more of a macro viewpoint, so you have no real data coming out on Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday, you have the ADP employment. Friday is payroll, so a lot of consumer linked data. If positive, then you will see the market really looking at rate cuts, possibly even a 50 basis point. So if that does occur, that would really help companies such as ChargePoint. And not only that, it might actually help them move to profitability faster than what analysts are forecasting. So again, just wanted to kind of share that with you. This is the current open interest. So you do see 27,000 at that $2 strike price for, again, this upcoming week. So there's a lot of optimism for this week. Even looking at the options, there's a high volatility, but based on just everything, there's a consensus. Even the bears are anticipating for it to be roughly around that $2 range. The bulls kind of are around that $2.50 to $3 range based on this. So you can kind of look at the delta. Delta is kind of the likelihood of this chain being in the money for the most part. So yeah, I think there's a lot of optimism when it comes down to the data. And luckily enough, like I said, if ChargePoint was to miss on something, as long as it's not completely dramatic, you could see the market somewhat forgive it minorly. So you have to take that with a grain of salt because the market has been extremely fickle. So stay tuned for that. And right now with it at $1.88, it is trading between this S1 and the pivot. So $1.61 is going to be the strong support. $2 is going to be the next strong resistance / target. So kind of just take note of some of the strong support and resistance points. In reality though, the market has really been trying to push ChargePoint higher, really propelling it to this pivot point right here. And ChargePoint actually did do a very good job throughout this time period of kind of holding its gains, especially around that $2 mark. It just once again was lagging the broader market, but as of right now, it is kind of above that 50-day moving average. Actually, I'll move it over so you guys can see it a little bit better. And as of right now, it is kind of flirting with that 200-day moving average. Outside of that, you do see stochastic. It is considered somewhat neutral, so not really overbought nor oversold. There is a nice bullish deviation though. And looking at the momentum indicator, you do see number of retail investors have been getting in. So all in all, I think a lot of the data points this upcoming week is bullish, just leading into their earnings. But if they do really surprise the broader market, this is where you could see a very swift strike or push higher. And again, might be hopeful to say, and not to hear spread any misinformation, you could see a squeeze. Again, that's if it's very, very positive, really incentivizing value investors and entities to get in, then yes, you could see this go down a little bit. So 27.05 to maybe kind of the low end of like 24, or possibly, dependent again on the data, maybe to the 20. So we'll just have to wait and see. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. What is your thoughts on ChargePoint's earnings? Are you optimistic, bearish, bullish? What's your viewpoint? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. And one final thing, take advantage of this promo. Simply sign up for a new account, throw $100 at it. They give you 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. Link to this is in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.